there, which is what I think Dan Brown wrote his novel based on. And there are theories which say that he went to North America. There are theories that say that he went to Europe, someplace in Europe. That's where he died. So all that comes from those 12 to 30 years of unaccounted for life years of Jesus. But that then brings me to the fact that there is actually no solid evidence to the very existence of Jesus. Now, the historicity of Jesus is again a very elaborate topic. I will definitely be happy to do that talk also. So when the discussion is about his historicity, there are two why, the WHY, that we have to ask. Why is the evidence scanty, fragmentary, vague, and so late? By scanty, I mean there is only literary evidence and no artifacts or relics of Jesus' lifetime. And they've been digging and digging and digging the archaeological departments in that area, and not one artifact has been found that Jesus may have used, like a comb, maybe, or some vessels, or the carpenter. He's a carpenter's son. So how come there's no, and for initially he was, there are, not in the Bible, the Judeo-Christian Bible, but there are other gospel accounts which did not make it into the final canon of the Bible, where it says that a lot of childhood matters of Jesus have been discussed. It has been said that he assisted his father in the carpentry work. But how come we've never found anything that Jesus made? Jesus is not an ordinary child. So everything that he touched, he made, or he used should have been preserved by his family. Because right from the beginning, Jesus was that special child, the Bible says. So he was born of a virgin. Even his birth was extraordinary. So Jesus was no ordinary person. Everything that he touched or did or made should have been preserved. But we don't find any relics. The only evidence that has ever been submitted was literary evidence, which has now been proven to be fakes and forgeries. And I said fragmentary evidence. By fragmentary, I mean the literary evidence ranges from one word to just a few sentences, nothing more than that, about an extraordinary person who raised people from the dead, who rose on the third day, who defied death, perhaps the only person in history. So, and it is all vague because there is nothing, all this literary evidence, which ranges from one word to few sentences, is all vague. There is nothing to specifically say that they were referring to this Jesus of the Bible or this Jesus of history. And it is late because the earliest account about a certain Jesus as an earthly being is at least 100 years after the supposed time of Jesus. So this is one important question we should ask, that why is the evidence so scanty? The second question, why we need to ask is, why were the contemporaries of Jesus silent? And this is my favorite. A lot of people talk about, these are the evidences, this is what certain person said, this is what Joseph Flavius said, this is what Tiberius said. But my question is, forget about the fragmentary evidence. Even if that were true, why were the contemporaries of Jesus silent? Presuming he was real, there were several contemporary historians doing their work, that is writing history. Were there no historians, philosophers, geographers, or biographers, or any other kind of literary writers during the alleged time of Jesus's birth, time on earth? Actually, it's quite the opposite. The first century Greco-Roman world was teeming with literary writers, poets, military and political writers, philosophers, historians, geographers, biographers, and there were general commentators also whose only vocation was to comment on the beliefs and traditions of the time and to report historical and natural events that took place around them. Now, these writers did their vocation with great passion, and there was no way that they could, such important aspects like extraordinary person like Jesus, they would ignore an extraordinary person like him. They had good reason to either meet and interact with Jesus, know him personally, at least take notice of him.
Yeah.
And none of them said a word. I want to talk about two people. One is called Lucius Annaeus Seneca, and another is called the Philo of Alexandria. Now, Seneca was also called the Seneca the Younger, and he lived from 4 BCE to 65 CE in the Roman Empire, right there where Jesus was supposedly raised. He was a Greco-Roman philosopher, a statesman. He was a de facto ruler for the Roman Empire for many years. And there are four very important reasons why he could have been a significant eyewitness. And by the way, I call these people the could have been eyewitnesses of Jesus. Well, that would have solved the entire argument today if these people had even mentioned that they heard of Jesus. Forget about not writing about him or reporting about him. They even do not mention that they have heard about him. So Seneca was born between 8 BCE and 4 BCE. I mean, Jesus was born between 8 and 4 BCE and died sometime between 29 and 33 CE. Now that's a huge gap. And because nobody knows when he was born, because he was not born at all. So we have these dates. Birth is between 8 and 4 BCE. Death is sometime between 29 and 33, depending on which source we are following and which chronology we are considering. So Seneca would have been a contemporary of Jesus because he was born.
Let me ask you a question. Bible was written by Saint Paul, is that right?
Bible, no. There are several writers of the New Testament. There are several letters that Paul wrote.
But he never met Jesus himself, right?
He never mentioned Jesus as an earthly being. That's very important. So his Jesus was a celestial person. He only talked about a resurrected Jesus. So what was happening, Dr. Swamy, was this guy, Paul, whoever he is, actually even Paul's existence is being questioned today. So Paul was actually writing on the basis of the stories that were in circulation of a risen Savior.
Okay. I was told that even the birth of Jesus Christ in Bethlehem was actually based on the dream that the King Constantine's mother had, and she said that he was born in that place, and without any other supporting text or whatever, Bethlehem was chosen because of that dream she had. Is this? Have you heard this?
I haven't heard about this particular theory of Constantine's mother's dream. I haven't heard about that.
All right, okay. I have my other colleagues also itching to ask questions. Let me ask two short questions. If you left Christianity because you had begun to have doubts, that is not, it's not immaculate truth anymore. There are, big gaps and so on. Your return to Hinduism, you will find that we Hindus love to debate, discuss, refuse to acknowledge, and so on. Wouldn't you see more of that in the Hinduism that you would see in Christianity? Disagreements, analysis, Shankaracharya saying one thing, Manu saying another. You see, Hinduism is full of debates, disagreements. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a huge difference between the disagreements in Hinduism and the disagreements in Christianity. So Christianity also, several different denominations have taken birth. In fact, 40,000 brands of Christianity have come up in just 2,000 years. 40,000 brands, different types of Christianities. So the disagreements are at the core issue, like whether Jesus existed or not, whether Jesus was, even if he existed, was he divine or not? Was he really the Son of God or not? So, and even another core issue that there is greatly, that the Bible itself contradicts, is on how salvation is attained. So Paul says that salvation is attained through faith in Jesus. Deeds are not at all taken into consideration. But then there is this guy called James in the New Testament itself, and he has written one book. He says that salvation is through good deeds, not just faith. So it's such a big contradiction on the one core concept of Christianity, core doctrine. But when you come to the disagreements in Hinduism, I think on the core concept of dharma, karma, we are in agreement.
That's true. That is true. The core concepts, you're right.
Yes.
How did you become a Christian? A little more details.
This is how every conversion story goes. It's always a human problem that a family is facing or an individual is facing. And then if if your neighbor happens to be a Christian, if your classmate happens to be a Christian or a colleague happens to be a Christian, there is every chance that this person who is undergoing this very human problem will get converted. So I'll tell you an anecdote from my own life. And suddenly my father saw that he had problems in his career with his job. And at the same time, my mother had a health issue. So my father had to quit his job. By then, he had already quit his central government job twice, actually. And then he was working in this private job in a senior management level. He had to quit that because of some reasons at office. At the same time, my mother fell sick. It was not a very huge, irreparable sickness. It was a small procedure that she had to undergo. So earlier, when my elder sister and my elder brother were young, I was still not born, they had health issues. So my sister used to get fits, and she used to be taken to a hospital in emergency. Similarly, my brother also had health issues. But why did my parents convert back then? And why did they convert at this point when my mother had to undergo a very small, she underwent a very small, what do you call, a surgery.
Procedure.
She had to do a small procedure. Yes. So it was a very small trouble. It was not anything compared to the life and death situations that they had faced with my older siblings. The reason that they converted this time and not back then is that back then we didn't have a Christian neighbor. This time we had a Christian neighbor. You see what I'm trying to say? So Christian neighbors, Christian classmates are vultures. They are just vultures. So they are just waiting to see trouble in the life of their Hindu neighbor or the life of their Hindu classmate. So they don't do the same to Muslims. They don't even dare to take their so-called gospel message to the Muslims. They do that to the Hindus. So that's what they did. They saw that this huge family of ours was at once thrown off balance onto this rough patch. And this man saw that he had a chance of converting that family. So he slowly began to extend a friendship. And slowly that's how he got a whiff of what was actually happening in our home, in our family. So then he started slowly saying that you have to, why don't you see your gods have abandoned you? Your gods, you pray so hard, so staunchly, they have abandoned you because they are not true gods. Follow Jesus and your troubles will be gone. So these people have a very, very, they have an answer to everything, and we are not so well equipped, at least not in my generation, back when we were transitioning. So these pastors have always this way of actually manipulating the situation. And Christianity always targets the female of the house, female of the family. So it actually it has 5 aspects of its strategy, and they are used to this day. It was used in the first century, in the early centuries of Christianity. It is used to this day. Christianity first creates the need. See, if Christianity had simply addressed the existing needs of people it targeted, I mean, back in the ancient world, it targeted pagans, and in the current Indian context, it targets Hindus. If Christianity just did address the existing needs, it would not have been able to take over much of the world. It succeeded in taking over the world because it actually created the need first that no one knew they had. So it's like it had invented this band-aid, and to sell this band-aid, it invented the injury in that opposite person. It created the need for band-aid, and the person did not even know that he was injured in order to sell the band-aid. So it created the need for salvation. It said, you are people, you are human beings that have sinned. You don't know when you sinned, but you have sinned, and you are in need of salvation. And that salvation can be only provided if you follow by Jesus, and we have that message for you. So it creates the need first, and then it claimed that it was the only religion that could meet that need. The number 2 strategy is it begins its work at the grassroots. So for any movement to succeed, it needs to have numbers on its side. This is exactly what Christianity did. So you see how important numbers are. So they always begin in grassroots, and they are still doing that in our country today. They stick to grassroots. And the third strategy.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Ramesh, do you have anything to say?
Yeah. I think let her finish this. She started something, so let her complete, and then I'll ask.
Yeah. So I was saying the third strategy is Christianity eliminates competition. So what do I mean by eliminating competition? It demonizes its competitors first. That's what Christianity is doing to Hinduism. It demonizes all practices. Back in the day, when it was early on, it demonized paganism. And today, in the Hindu context, it demonizes Hinduism. It is all or nothing for Christianity. So either we get all or we don't want anything.
Do we have a support system for ex-Christians? Like you were a former Christian and you moved, and they are looking for alternatives.
No, there is no ecosystem for former Christians. A lot of people shy away from coming out. I've had several such calls, and I get inbox messages where they want me to help them, understand it better. So they're in this confusion, this dilemma. Don't know whether they should come out because you know how they'll be ostracized. Not everybody can just go stand against their families like I did. So they don't want to come out. They're afraid they'll be ostracized. They're afraid of the criticism that they'll get online. And I wasn't spared either. I mean, you'll find, if you just Google Esther Dhanraj, you'll find more videos against me than videos by me.
That happens to all of
what you're saying is correct, which means what you're saying is correct.
Right. Yeah. That's my only saving grace. So that's what keeps me going. So
we all have this problem. Not to worry. You carry on.
Yes.
We have another case right in front of you, so we know what it means.
Right. Yeah. So you when you're criticized the most, you're doing the right thing.
That's right. That's the spirit.
So we don't have an ecosystem, and that is very important that we need to be there. You see so many testimonies of Christian converts where they say that I was made to worship these demons. These were Hindus till recently, till yesterday. And today when they convert to Christianity, they already start abusing the Hindu idols, Hindu gods. We were taught that testimony. We were made to say that in church. Like, talk about how your gods abandoned you. talk about how no ratams worked, talk about how your father's years of Gayatri Upasana did not work. So they are taught. So unless they demonize, in fact, I've heard my father say so many times to these pastors, Pastor, when you come to my house, you are not using even one derogatory word about the Hindu gods. Jesus, I think, is not, my father said this, Jesus, I think, is not so weak that he can be elevated only when you can demonize the Hindu idols. So this is their sermon. Every Sunday after Sunday, they use these words in the sermon. So assimilation is one aspect. It comes at a later time. Eventually, they assimilate to win the others, but their first strategy is to demonize and eliminate competition. And there are studies to prove this. Every culture they go, they demonize the existing traditions, practices, beliefs, then they make an entry, and then they assimilate. So it's a process. It's a strategic way of doing it.
One short question. Have you written a book on all this? About your experience?
Not yet, Dr. Swamy.
So do that. It will be a big bestseller, I can tell you. I think Arvind has to wind up. No, add to your point. I started off by telling you that census after census, there is the population ratio of Christians is 2.3. So what these schools are actually doing is subverting the minds of the Hindus. I mean, you are not you may remain as a Hindu, but you are not going to be, advancing the cause of Hindus. And that's why this secular and all this thing, you see, is brought up. And I know that many of all these elites in India, they think all this is infra dig to talk about, Hinduism and what Shankaracharya's debate is and so on and so forth. So that is what the Christian churches are doing. And then, of course, they need people. They get money from abroad for that. So they tried this by the methods Ms. Dhanraj has very vividly put before us. But then I think we may have to have more sessions with you if we are going to get full.
You also asked another question, Dr. Swamy. How is it declining in the West and how is it affects? So that's a very important topic. And this was a topic I presented at GEV. You were not there that day when I presented. Yeah.
We will do another session. Is Christianity sinking or something like that? And
it was actually, it's called Collapse of Christianity in the West and its impact on India.
We'll use that title. We'll use that title.
Sorry, it's falling dramatically in the US per se. I mean, I can see the number of churches.
Even in US, UK.
Even in Kerala, I'm telling you, the Christian adherence is going down. And once they got these Christians to make the fatal mistake of having gopurams and things like that, the Hinduism will swallow it all.
Yes.
Anyway, I think we can go on and on. It was a superb performance on your part in terms of bringing out the facts. And there are many more sessions I think we should have because the country needs to know. And on this issue, there's a growing issue. In this issue, the matter is growing. We are concerned about that even after the British having gone, our religions being constantly defamed and desecrated. So in that context, we want to continue this interest in the public to know how the situation is, not just have an emotional reaction saying mine and yours sort of thing, but actually the logic and how to argue and put it across to other people. So shall I take that as concluding remarks also?
Yes.